I've been hauling freight for 22 years. I've moved everything from frozen chicken to industrial machinery. I've hauled hazardous materials, livestock, even a shipment of live bees once. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the container they loaded onto my trailer that Tuesday night in Nevada. I was working for a subcontractor out of Reno, a small outfit that did specialized hauls for the military and government contractors. The pay was good, the kind of good that made you overlook the weirdness. And let me tell you, there was plenty of weirdness. Secretive dispatches, midnight pickups, facilities with no signs. But I'd been doing it long enough that I'd stopped asking questions. I just picked up the load, drove it to the destination, and collected my check. That system worked fine for me, until that container. I got the call at 8 o'clock that night. My dispatcher, a gruff old bastard named Carl, told me I had a priority pickup at the Hawthorne Army Depot. He said it was a sealed container marked for incineration. Medical waste. Nothing dangerous, he said. Just old biological samples that needed to be disposed of properly. I didn't believe him. I never believed Carl. But I took the job anyway because the money was triple my usual rate. I pulled up to the depot at 11 o'clock. The facility was a massive complex of warehouses and bunkers, surrounded by chain link fence, topped with razor wire. The guard at the gate checked my ID, checked my paperwork, and waved me through. I followed the signs to loading dock 7. A forklift was waiting. On the dock was a container, not a standard shipping container. This one was smaller, about the size of a large refrigerator. It was made of heavy gauge steel, painted a dull gray. There were no markings on it except for a single stenciled label on the side. Medical waste, incinerate only. And below that, in smaller letters, do not open. Quarantine protocol. The forklift operator was a silent guy in coveralls who didn't say a word to me. He just loaded the container onto my trailer, secured it with chains, and handed me a clipboard. I signed the paperwork without reading it. I was tired. I wanted to get on the road. I pulled out of the depot at midnight. The load was light, barely a few 100 pounds. The trailer was a refrigerated unit, but this container wasn't plugged into the cooling system. It was just sitting there, strapped down to the bed of the flatbed. I thought that was odd. Medical waste usually needs to be kept cold, but I didn't question it. I just drove. The first 3 hours were uneventful. I headed south on US 95, through the desert towards Las Vegas. The night was clear. The stars were bright. The road was empty. I had my windows down, enjoying the cool desert air. I was listening to an old country station on the radio. Everything was normal. Then came 3 a.m. I was about 50 miles north of Vegas, in the middle of nowhere. The road stretched out ahead of me, empty and dark. The only lights were my headlights and the glow of the dashboard. I was thinking about stopping for coffee when I heard it. A scream, a human scream, coming from the back of the trailer. I slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded to a stop on the shoulder of the road. I sat there for a moment, my heart pounding, my hands gripping the wheel. I listened. Nothing. Just the ticking of the engine and the sound of the wind. I told myself I was hearing things. It was late. I was tired. My brain was playing tricks on me. I started to pull back onto the highway when I heard it again. Another scream, louder this time, and longer. A woman's scream, terrified, desperate. I jumped out of the truck and ran to the back. The container was sitting there, perfectly still, strapped down with chains. I pressed my ear against the metal. Silence. I waited. Nothing. I grabbed a crowbar from my toolbox. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I had to open it. I had to see. I inserted the crowbar into the latch and pried it open. The door swung outward. I peered inside. Empty. Completely empty. Just a dark steel box. 4 walls, a floor, a ceiling. Nothing inside. No shelves. No containers. No woman. No one. But it was warm. The air that hit my face was warm. Not hot, not cold, warm, like a room that had just been occupied. I reached my hand inside. The metal walls were warm. The floor was warm. The air was warm. I looked at the temperature gauge on my watch. It read 98.6 degrees, human body temperature. I closed the door. I locked it. I walked back to the cab. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what I'd just witnessed. I didn't know if I was going crazy. I just wanted to get to the delivery point and be done with this load. I got back on the road. I drove for about 10 minutes. Everything was quiet. I started to relax. I started to think it was over. Then the screaming started again. It was coming from inside the container. But this time, it wasn't just a scream. It was a cacophony. Dozens of voices, men, women, children, all screaming, all crying out at once. And they were getting louder, closer, like something was pressing against the walls of the container from the inside. I pulled over again. I ran to the back. The screaming was deafening. It was coming through the metal like the walls were paper. I pressed my ear against the door. The screaming stopped. Silence, just like before. I opened the door. Empty, still empty, but now there was something on the floor. A puddle of water, clear, warm. And when I touched it, it was 98.6 degrees. I closed the door. I locked it. I backed away from the trailer. I didn't want to be near that container. I didn't want to be near my truck. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear into the desert and never come back. But I couldn't. I had a job to do. I had a delivery to make. I convinced myself it was a trick. Some kind of ventilation system, some kind of acoustic feedback. I convinced myself it wasn't real. I drove the rest of the way to Vegas. The screaming started and stopped the entire way. Every time I pulled over, it stopped. Every time I opened the door, it was empty. Every time I touched the walls, they were warm. 98.6 degrees. I arrived at the delivery point at 6 in the morning. It was a small medical incineration facility on the outskirts of the city. No signs, no windows, just a concrete building with a loading dock and a single garage door. I backed my truck up to the dock and honked my horn. A man came out. He was tall, thin, with gray hair and a gaunt face. He was wearing a white lab coat and thick rubber gloves. He walked up to me and said, "You have the container." I nodded. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry. My hands were still shaking. He walked to the back of the trailer and inspected the container. He ran his gloved hand over the surface. He pressed his ear against the door. He listened for a moment. Then he turned to me. He said, "Did you hear it?" I nodded again. He said, "Did you open it?" I hesitated. Then I nodded again. He sighed. He said, "You shouldn't have done that." I asked him, "What is it? What's inside?" He looked at me with those gray eyes. He said, "You're the 7th driver to complain about this container. The other 6 never made it back." I felt my stomach drop. I said, "What do you mean? What happened to them?" He said, "They delivered the container, they signed the paperwork, they drove away, and then they disappeared. Their trucks were found abandoned on the side of the road. The engines were still running. The doors were open. The drivers were gone. Just gone. Like they were never there." I said, "What's inside? What am I hauling?" He said, "You're hauling what's left of them, the ones who came before you, and the ones who came before them, and the ones who came before that." It's a cycle, a loop. The container takes a driver, and then it needs a new driver, because the old one becomes part of the cargo. I stared at him. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I just stood there, frozen. He said, "You opened the door. You let them out. Now they're going to come for you, just like they came for the others." I backed away from him. I said, "I didn't see anything. There was nothing inside." He said, "There's never anything inside. They don't exist in this world. They exist in the space between. The space that opens when you open the door. And when you open it, they follow you. They follow you until they catch you. And then you join them." I ran to my truck. I jumped into the cab and started the engine. I drove away from that facility as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I drove until I was out of Vegas, out of Nevada, out of the state entirely. I drove for 3 days. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just drove. I was terrified. I kept looking in my rearview mirror, expecting to see something. But there was nothing, just the empty road behind me. I thought I had escaped. I thought I had made it. I was wrong. It started on the 4th day. I was at a truck stop in Arizona, filling up my tank. A woman walked up to me. She was wearing a white dress. Her face was pale. Her eyes were black. She said, "You opened the door. You let us out." I stumbled backward. I said, "Leave me alone. I didn't mean to. I didn't know." She said, "It doesn't matter. You opened it. You're one of us now." I ran to my truck. I drove away. I didn't stop driving for a week. I drove until I ran out of gas in the middle of nowhere. I sat there in the dark, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was in my truck. But I wasn't driving. I was parked in a loading dock at a medical incineration facility. The same facility, the one in Vegas. I looked in my rearview mirror. The container was on my trailer. The same container, the same gray steel, the same stenciled label. Medical waste, incinerate only. I heard a knock on my door. It was the same man, the one in the white lab coat. He opened the door and said, "Good morning, driver. Ready for your pickup?" I said, "What is this? I already delivered this. I was here before." He said, "That wasn't you. That was the driver before you, and the driver before him, and the driver before that. You're the one who's here now. You're the one who's going to deliver it." I said, "I don't want to. I'm not going to. You can't make me." He said, "You don't have a choice. The container chooses, and it chose you the moment you opened the door." He walked away. I sat in the cab, staring at the container. I knew what was inside. I knew what was coming. I got out of the truck. I walked to the back. I opened the container door. It was empty, just like before. But now on the floor was a photograph, a picture of me, sleeping, in my own bed, taken from the foot of the bed. I don't remember anyone taking that picture. I don't remember anyone being in my room. I looked at the back of the photograph. There was writing, my handwriting, but I didn't write it. It said, "You opened the door. Now you join us. See you in the container." I threw the photograph away. I got back in the truck. I drove away. I don't know where I was going. I just drove. I've been driving for 2 weeks now. I haven't stopped. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. I just drive. But every time I look in my rearview mirror, I see it, the container. It's always there, attached to my trailer. No matter how fast I drive, no matter how far I go, it's there. And the screaming is always there, constant, unending. I know what's going to happen. I know I'm going to stop eventually. I know I'm going to pull over. I know I'm going to open that door again. And when I do, they'll be waiting. All of them. The ones who came before me, the ones who opened the door, the ones who joined the cargo. And then I'll be in the container, and someone else will drive, and someone else will hear the screams, and someone else will open the door, and the cycle will continue forever. I'm writing this down because I want someone to know. I want someone to understand. If you ever see a container marked medical waste, incinerate only, don't open it. Don't even touch it. Just walk away. It's not waste. It's a trap. A trap for the living. A prison for the dead. And once you open it, you're one of them. You're part of the cargo. I can feel it now. The warmth. 98.6 degrees. It's spreading through the cab. It's coming from the container. It's seeping through the metal. It's wrapping around me like a blanket. I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm going to pull over. I'm going to open that door. I'm going to join them. If you're reading this, don't look for me. You won't find me. I'm in the container now. I'm one of them. I'm the cargo that screams. Goodbye.